Welcome to our today's class, and in this class today I would like to discuss about the storage management. And before we look at the storage management, I'm going to discuss something about workstations. In most of the cases, we have been interacted with several parts of systems that we use, both in our fields of work and also the places where sometimes we visit to do our own personal practices and work of daily duties. Now, sometimes we have a question that comes under the system administration, that a workstation can be a computer hardware dedicated to a single customer's work. For example, you are in the server rooms. The server room can act as a workstation because you have several computers dedicated for individual expertise who are working inside that area. Now, usually this means that a customer's desktop or a laptop PC. So if you have your laptop or your desktop and you are using it for your purposes to perform a certain task alone and in the modern environment, then you are establishing what is called a workstation. This can also be an office. So in the modern environment, we also have remotely accessed PCs and virtual machines and the dockable laptops, among others. These all are components that are integrated within the workstation areas. Now, I would like to talk about something called the workstations being usually deployed in large quantities, and they have long life cycles. For example, birth, use, date. As a result, if you need to make a change on all of them, doing it right is complicated and critical. If something goes wrong, you'll probably find yourself working late nights, blaringly struggling to fix a big mess, only to face maybe the grumpy users in the morning. So whenever you are working in a workstation, you need to ensure that your desk is well arranged, is well dedicated and well established and arranged well. So also, in addition to what we can talk about that workstation area, then it means that we can also have some look of several activities that take place in a workstation. Other definition that we can talk about the workstation is that a workstation is a personal computer that is used for high-end applications such as graphic design, video editing, CAD, 3D design, or other CPU and RAM intensive programs. So a workstation typically has a top of the lines fast processor multiplier and also a lot of RAM memories that are able to process data at a fast rate. So a workstation may also have a special audio, video, or processing cards for special editing work. And mostly also it's marketed by computer manufacturers to professional users, while the server is more of utility devices. So those are the key things that you need to know about the workstation. So both form part of the networking architecture and they only differ in their functions and the use. So different workstations have different functionalities and different uses and purposes why they were established. So also we can also say that a workstation being a special computer designed for technical or scientific applications that intended primarily to be used by one person. So the term workstation has also been used loosely to refer to everything from the mainframe computers. These mainframe computers are always large particular or large file computers that we normally use in very large companies such as the weather forecasting areas. We talk about aeroplane or the aircraft areas, airstrips, and so on, because you require to process large data, large amount of work, and also connect several systems at once. So in workstations, it also been used loosely to refer everything from the mainframe computer's terminals to a PC connected to a network. But most commonly, we talk about the references of the group hardware offered by several current and also defunct companies such as the Microsystems, Silicon Graphics, Apollo Computers, HP, and IBM companies. Let's look at the types of the servers and workstations that we use in our areas of work. So a server can be of many types. For example, application servers, the web servers, and others. An application server allows users on a network to share applications. A workstation, since are used for specific types, can also be various types. And therefore, we always say that our workstation or also other areas of servers have what are called the video stations, video studios, and so on. Like for example, you have installed the CCTVs to monitor all the networks. When you're talking about data virtualization, data centers, and so on, there are several things that you always have to have in mind, particularly based on the type of servers that is being run. Now, a sound workstation may also be integrated with audio cards, synthesizers, and microphones to form studios. And therefore, when we say that, can you state any other example of a workstation that you have? Some of them can also be the sound workstations. For example, when this music production and other audio production areas where it's taking place, we can say that those are workstations because they are well organized and they are also free out of noise or any other form of interferences. So a video workstation is used for a nonlinear digital editing of videos, and therefore we can talk about the benefits of workstations in so many ways. But the key ones that I've just elaborated and highlighted for you as for easier understanding is what are called the office workstations. So office workstations are more functional and stylish. So whenever you go to any office or any server rooms or any established office that you are performing your tasks, you always ensure that it's well organized and well stylish. Maybe you have some computers attached to them and well organized. You have some sound devices attached to them so that you can easily communicate. Then we have other things that are called ergonomic workstations assets. They help us to avoid repetitive strain injuries. For example, if your area or workstation has a lot of echoes, then you intend to have all that being sorted out and resolved. So, well-designed workstation layout, along with its storage spaces, colors, and flexibilities, helps you to increase the overall productivity of the business. So when your workstation is well established with good storage devices, well colored, flexible, so that you can make changes as you wish. The chairs, you can move with them very freely and well. Then they help to make your business more productive, because people will like and they will admire to be in your office and doing other things within your workstations. Assume that you have established a studio and it's much fixed, people cannot move, people cannot breathe well. You see, that is a very big challenge. You cannot have more productive business. But if it is well organized and stylish and also well colored, colors must be eye attractive and eye friendly so that they don't just tarnish everything. If you display some content, it must be well seen. Then modular and ergonomic workstations help us to accommodate various sets of working needs like shelves, drawers, and many more. They are also easy to maintain and environmentally friendly with abrasive resistance and durability. That's the other benefits of having a workstation. Now we have different types of workstations depending with the ranges and the businesses that we are undertaking. So you'll find that different workstation types are given, and with that then you'll find that you can end up having different categories being selected based on the type of businesses that you are running, and also the office interior and budget that you have organized for your business to start with. So the key types of example, or the key types that we have of the workstations are the linear workstations, or they are also called the straight workstations. We have cluster workstations or L-shaped workstations. This is now based on the arrangement of seatings that you have organized within your own office. We have the single seater workstation, meaning that it's only one desk, your computers or PC and the other devices, then only one of your seat that you sit and then be able to organize all that. Single Pentagon workstation is also one of the other type of workstations that we have. The 4-seater, meaning that within your workstations you have your several desks, but you must have 4 seats, or sometimes you can even just have something like a sofa set of a 4-seater that's connected and attached together so that all of you face one direction. Sometimes you can you have visited areas where individuals are seated, maybe waiting for saloon services, and you'll find that maybe the 4-seater has been established somewhere there. Or maybe you have a server room that needs maybe, or being monitored by maybe 4 IT administrators. So you'll have to find that maybe they are seated only in one coach, and that seat is made up of 4 spaces for individuals. 4-seater Pentagon workstation, meaning that it's 4 seaters, but you arrange them in a pentagon way. That means that it's 5-dimensional. It's 5-dimensional. So 5 people seated in different corners. 4 people seated in different corners. The 4 corners attached to them, so that one person on the other side, the other one then followed by others. All of them in a pentagon format, just like 5 bob shilling, the old one, that bigger one. Cubicle workstations, meaning that people sit in a cubic way so that they all face into one direction, where now they have their own servers or the PC support designated for such kind of work. Especially you'll find these ones in airstrips and it's called airports, where the captains are seated maybe to organize and also for see a certain type of an aeroplane that is taking off, or when you talk about the control towers, where individuals are seated to control other aeroplanes that are on the way. We have designer workstations, which are mostly used for graphic design areas. Then we have U-shaped workstations, people seated in a U-shaped seater. Then we have the F2 screen systems, F3 screen systems, and so on. So some of them you can just mention them then as we move. Now we have what are called servers. A server is an application or device that performs service for connected clients as part of the client server architecture. Examples, sometimes that we have servers that only deal with the mails, servers that deals with the security of the connections or the connectivities, or so we'll find that those ones come in, especially when the proxy servers, mostly we use them to set what are called rules for connection. We have what are called servers being applications to users on an internet. For example, maybe at where when you go down there to Otunga Hall, the other side of the library, we have the server rooms there. So within those server rooms, we intend to have several type of devices attached there. So that is a network server room, and you'll find that within that network server room we also have other areas, other platforms or servers that are interlinked there, like the mail servers, where people can be able to connect with different individuals to send mails, and for example the web mails, the Gmails, the Yahoo platforms, those are the mail servers. So it is also a computer system that has been designated for running a specific server applications. If the computer has only Microsoft Server, then the work of that Microsoft Server is only to serve the Microsoft services, but not to serve Google services. So different servers have their specific functionalities. So different servers do different jobs, from serving emails, videos, to protecting internal networks and hosting web clients. We have different servers different servers do different jobs, of which we have talked about: protecting internal networks and hosting websites, and several work that are designated or that come up for use. Server types include things like the proxy servers, and we say that a proxy server site is a site between the client program, typically a web browser, and an external server. Sometimes you can use the proxy server in order to set the type of sites that people have to visit. If you lock YouTube within the proxy server area, then people cannot be able to access the YouTube URL. So you can even just put there the URL, then be able to lock individuals from accessing that area. We have mail servers, which are almost unambiguous and crucial as a web server. We have things like mail servers that move to store mail over the corporate networks, such as the LANs and WANs and across the internet. For example, when you are talking about the mail chips are examples of the mail servers. When you are talking about the web mails are also examples of mail servers. I don't know if I'll be able, because sometimes you can even link your webmail with your what is called like to get something here. Let me try to access something here. just try to access, for example, this Outlook account. You can link your Outlook account with your mail server, your webmail server. Like for example, we need to access a certain webmail here. Let me just log into this. Excuse. So you can see from this Outlook account, I've linked several webmails which are called from server areas. Like my company is called EMCI Hub Technologies Limited, and I have my mails here linked to the account. I also have these other individual professional colleges where sometimes I do lecture, and the accounts being linked to my Outlook account. Now, in order maybe to log in, you need to use the URL, then webmail, then stroke the website that is hosting that particular for example, here if I log into this, you'll find that this is a webmail. That's maybe you need to log in. So this is a webmail. So these webmails are platforms that we can use to serve as a web server. So this webmail is being hosted by a web server. So examples of webmails are examples of the mail servers that we are talking about. When it comes to things like the server platforms can be the Microsoft server. We also have what are called Oracle servers. We also have what are called Microsoft Azure servers, and we also have other servers such as internet servers, like the ones that are offered by Kenneth Company. And so all of them, you need to be able to interact with them. That's why when you need to do a course like Cisco, when you do Cisco and especially perform the exams for CCNP and CCNA and CCNP, all those examinations test you or teaches you on how to link yourself with what are called the server rooms. And within the servers, then you become a very key and critical web system administrators in any company, including Safaricom or any other big companies that we have. We have web servers which mostly we use to host our websites. For example, that you have been able to use what are called exams. Exams are the web servers. We also have WAMPs, and we also have other web servers such as SQLite. We have Microsoft. For example, this is an exam where maybe you are running different web platforms, and that's how you can start the Apache. The Apache will now give you the URL to access it through the local host. It's like the domain name is what the Apache gives you. Then MySQL now will give you now the database access. So mostly those are examples of the web servers. I have several websites that I've developed systems and so on. So sometimes being a programmer and a software engineer, we work throughout the night, so it's something that we are used to. For example, even just now you can see several codes that I was working on. Just here you can see all the time you need to be able to be performing your coding activities. Now, as a programmer, you develop systems every now and then. You don't just sit idle. Any programmer is never idle, so you need to be able to really work on several things. We have different systems here, and this is a system for, these are just Android for hostel booking for a certain reservation company here they're working on. So may I talk to people first before I now complete with my other remaining part of the lecture, the application servers and so on. If I check here, I have how many participants? 17, meaning that other individuals are not in. Susan, Simon, Salonos, we have Wycliffe. Now this one is Technos Park 4 Air. Who is this? What's the name? Taminga, okay. Technos Park 4 anaitwa nani? Na huyu admin anaitwa nani? Sapit Lewis, sawa, jina nimeona. Let me mark this register here. Moses, I'm marking this register. Michelle, Adija, Gilbert. Kuna mtu anaitwa HP, sijui. Arnold, Daya. Ian is joining the class late. I think I'll block these people. Joining the class late. Admin, what's the correct name? All present individuals, send your names to the chat section. Here. David Mukuria, okay. Bernard Gitu, using a school desktop, okay. Understood. Understood, Bernard, understood. Lewis Sapit, okay. Yes, let's do that typing very fast so that we proceed. Have people finished typing their names? Still waiting. Mute, please. There is somebody by the name Godwin Ikachuku. Huyo mtu anakuja class.
Yes, sir.
Kachuku, are you around?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Ebu turn on your video, I see. But I have not seen the name typed here. In the chat section.
I don't know what's happening.
Okay. Somebody is saying cannot log in because of Wi-Fi. If you dial 44 hash, you can get bundles at 10 bob, 10 GBs even, 10 GB at 10 bob. So I think 10 shillings somebody can get. He can even Fuliza 10 shillings. No? People can use even this. Just go to buy data and you'll be able to get 10 GB at 10 bob. 15 bob, something like 1.15 GB. It's cheaper. You can do a class within this 1 hour and we are done. You leave it. Hope watu wamejua sasa, they can buy. Let me also check in my side if I also have the same, so that I talk with the experience that I've seen it. So there is that. You go to buy data deals, that is number 1. Then you can see here 15 shillings, you have 1.15 GB, valid for 3 hours. surely. See, 3 hours. See, class yetu ni 1 hour 40 minutes hivi we are done. Na huko na 1.15 GB at 15 bob. Unaweza fuliza hata. Tumia 220 pay bill number. Unafuliza, unanunua bundles hapo. Si ndio Michelle? Ama bado unalia hapa? Hapo. Michelle ako class. Sijui mbona Teddy Wainaina, okay. Hilbert. I hope watu wote wametuma majina kamili hapa kwa chat. Comrades can't afford 10 bob, sir. Hey, yeah. Okay. Acha niendelee kidogo nimalize hii class haraka. Application servers, sometimes referred to as the type of middleware. Application servers. So these application servers can be database servers or any other application that you are using to run. Even the Android apps have their own servers inside them. So you can use even the Firebase to have its own to connect or to link your apps. But now you'll find that other platforms or other systems come with their own servers. After 10 minutes you will just rejoin so that we complete. We have what are called real-time communication servers, which are commonly used for communication and chat services like SMS. SMS uses what is called the real-time communication servers. FTP is for file transfer protocols. They are the ones that enables you to transfer data from one computer to another. Collaboration servers mostly is used for collaborative softwares in order to integrate different systems into one. For example, when you use the Google location, it uses the collaboration servers to perform its work. List servers we talk about, they offer better management mailing lists. For example, the newsletters, the advertising, we have what I call the mail chips. All those are good examples of the list servers. Telnets. This enables users to log on to the host computer and perform tasks as if they are working on the remote computer itself. So telnet is what enables you to be able to use what are called remote access. This remote connection. Or also if you are using what are called team viewer. If you are using what are called team viewer, you'll be able to use team viewer to connect to different computers simply because of the telnet server. Open source servers, they are underlying open source servers operating for softwares. You can easily get them for IT infrastructure, virtual servers, and so on. So we have what are called Linux versus Microsoft Windows. So what are the advantages that we get from using a Linux compared to Microsoft, or Microsoft compared to Windows? So Linux and Microsoft Windows are two main web hosting services that we have in the market. Every computer either runs a Linux or it runs the Windows operating system. Then a few run Mac, and Mac OS is of it has its own way of operation. Because of its expenses, majority of the people don't afford it. So we go as per your pocket friendly level. Don't strain yourself. Afford what you can. As a comrade, also afford what you can. Do not struggle to afford what you can't. We have a lot of depressions in students who are undertaking studies, and you see, it's just because they want to live a life that doesn't belong to them. Please Just afford what you can. What you can't, wachana nayo. Time will come, you'll afford all. Do not push yourself so much to the extent that you start committing suicide or depressed and start leaving school and so on because of pressure. Leave that. Just do what you can. Others wachana nayo, and life goes on. Both Linux and Windows offer VPS hosting servers, but the virtual private servers, that's the VPS. So majority of the computers have such kind of functionalities. Advantages of Linux and Windows servers, or over the Windows servers. We talk about cost. Linux is always open source system, while as compared to Windows, which is you must pay it for you to get the Windows operating system, or sometimes you deal with these pirating companies which offer you maybe the free downloads, but you'll find that that's why Windows came up with Windows 11. With Windows 11 now, it will read for you your RTP and the TPN sections of your hardware drive, and once it checks and finds that the license doesn't appear, then it will be able to detect that this is a pirated type of software that it's running. So that's why Windows Microsoft is coming up with the Windows 11. We talk about access to open source applications. As with most technologies, applications work better with similar designed applications. That means that company using Linux servers should be able to seamlessly use open source systems compared to the Windows for profit technology, which requires cash to buy several things. Even the Windows servers are mostly costly, but with Linux sometimes it comes with inbuilt components that you don't need to pay anything, because like for you to use even Microsoft Office in Microsoft Windows, you need to purchase it, so which means that you have to buy everything that you are using. But with the Linux, once you have installed it, it comes with everything inbuilt. So more reliable, Linux and open source softwares generally use fewer resources, making the systems more efficient. Easier to modify, Linux servers and softwares can be easily modified. You can also add your own codes to the systems the way you wish to have. We have what are called easier to also make changes that you wish, because since it is open source, you can as well as open any file and add your code in order to suit what you really want. Benefits of Windows servers over Linux servers. Mostly we talk about better support. While Windows servers and Windows applications come with the cost, they also both usually come with paid support. With open source softwares, sometimes you don't have such support. Better integration with Microsoft products. You'll find that Windows applications are designed to integrate with Windows servers and other applications such as MySQL for database connectivity and other functions. Microsoft Access and Microsoft Publishers. You know that some individuals do perform what are called desktop publishing, and you find that with desktop publishing you are using things like Microsoft Publishers to design different things, cards and so on. Actually the graphic design systems, all that can also be easily integrated to Windows. More complete, Windows servers and software generally have more features compared to other open source systems, which needs you to add them. Then remote desktop access. Linux servers are command line based, and therefore Windows can come with the remote desktops and so on. for you to be able to integrate to your graphical user interfaces. Scripting frameworks is also one of the things that has, because of the ASP.NET that Microsoft uses for even development. As a developer or a dev individual, you can be able also to use the ASP.NET and develop complete systems and softwares, even mobile applications, using the ASP.NET. Although it is not widely used and commonly used in most of the companies, so sometimes it restricts your job market, you see. But you can use ASP.NET in integration with C# within the Visual Studio area, what is called the Visual Basic Studio community, to be able to design your systems. So after this 1 minute, then you can see we have here 1 minute. After that, you just rejoin, and I think I've completed that part. This hardware device and tools, these are just command lines that we use under Linux in order to connect with other devices when required. So I think we are done with this part. Next part is now this about workstations. We have discussed about that. Installing Windows operating system. You need to be able to install something like a Windows operating system to both a general computer, because at the end of the day you will be going for attachments and internships, and you'll join please just after this 1 minute. You go to the internships or attachments, and you've been given tasks. Okay, since others are somewhere, we can proceed here with the, because I want just to complete the entire of this lecture. This makes the end of the syllabus, so I want to complete with this thing today and just come for a practical one day for partitioning, formatting, and that will be done, so that DIT 016 we also come and do some practicals within next week. I think next week I'll come from the time I start just practicals until the time we complete. So I've made the theory be available to individuals. So now, how do we install a Windows operating system? It is very simple and very easy. You only need to design an ISO file using your flash disk and software such as the Rufus or a software called Power ISO. So those are the key. So once you have designed your bootable disk or bootable software, then you can proceed to start the installation. So depending with the type of the machine, sometimes like HP you can use F10 or F9 and it will be a bootable for you. Like Toshiba and Dell, sometimes it's F2, F3, F4 there, and it will be able to boot. So you need just to master which one boots your system. Others, you will find that they use escape or F1 in order to do the booting process. Now, the installation process is one of the most destructive things we can do. Before you do the installation, you first of all need to back up data. Ensure that you back up data. So you back up first of all the data to what you want to save, especially if your disk is not partitioned like this one. Sometimes, but even if sometimes you have partitioned the disk, we have some installations that will disturb. So the only safest thing to do is for you to be able to do the backup. So you can back up your data to another external hard disk drive. Then you now start to conduct the setup. So when you have your flash disk like this one, you can see I have some bootable here, bootable Windows, and it can work once I put it inside any computer and start it, because it has this setup here which is bootable. So you need to create a bootable using software such as Rufus and other forms. So with that, then Power ISO can also help you to develop it. Everything on the disk will disappear during the installation process, and that's why you need to back up data. Because one time you might be somewhere doing some work and you've gone maybe to your boss's desk and maybe you are doing the upgrade of the Windows, and then you thought that maybe the disk is partitioned, and then you started the installation. Then all of a sudden you find that it will require maybe to format the entire disk. Maybe it is not seeing that partition as the primary partition of the disk. So you'll have to format the entire disk and then start now to partition it later after the installation process. So you see that you will be making these people lose their data. Number two, you'll find that majority of the people working today are not computer literate. So you'll find that most of the content is saved where? At the desktop. So once you save everything in the desktop, what do you think is going to happen? It means that majority of the content is going to get lost when you are doing the installation, because desktop is part of the local disk C, or the primary local disk. So you will tend to lose everything. So to avoid that, then you will have to back up your data first to other external disks. Then installing new machines is simple affair. The operating system comes sometimes with the removable medium such as CD or DVD that is inserted into the player or the bootable slot area. Then you start. But remember this, majority of the computers nowadays or laptops are designed in the way that we are trying to minimize the space they occupy. So you'll have to look for a slimmed possible laptop, because you want it to occupy a smaller space, also for it to be very portable, you see. So in such kind of cases, then you'll find that you tend to lose a lot of data and other things. Operating systems. Now, when you are having a very slim computer, it means that the space it takes is very small. Number two, it's very portable. It can fit into smaller pockets, and you work as if you have just a small book, you see. But now what makes that is, it means that the system is going only to use the ports usable for USB ports for inserting the flash disks and other USB cables. And you'll find that it does not pick what is called the floppy disk or the DVDs. So in that case, then you'll find that you tend to lose. Even if you have a CD or the DVD setup, it will not work, because now maybe the ports, you don't have that floppy disk slot. Operating systems are now large, and so they are split up to packages. That's why when you check inside this Windows operating system here, even if I check under these softwares, let me check here the softwares, and we look at the Windows operating system. I don't know if there is an operating system here. This is Ubuntu. And look at other software here, Windows and Office. Sorry. Try to see here. When we talk about Windows operating system, this is Windows 11, and you can see it has packages. Now that's what we mean, that packages, when it is not compressed. So you have the setup, you have other booting EFI files, you have the support files, you have the auto run that will now create the setup to the hardware, you have the sources and the booting systems areas, where it has all the font setups, the English languages that are there, and so on. So resources, other resources that the system uses in terms of the DLL files. So that is what we mean, that they exist sometimes with the different packages. Next, we talk about most operating systems provide a package installation program which helps this process. In order to answer the questions about installing a new host information, you must be able to collect some choices. One, you must decide the name of each machine. We need also to we need an unused internet address for each, and we also must decide how much virtual memory you are allocating to the system. Even when you are installing the Linux through the VirtualBox area, the same things you are doing. You also need to know the local netmask and domain names. You also need to know the local time zone, so that it always asks you which time zone do you want, which language do you pick. Is it English UK, English China, English where are you picking the Chinese? So if from those ones from China, they'll pick Chinese. Those ones from Spain will pick Spain. I know Kenyans, we use the UK English because we are all colonized by the British. Although some of you also understands better American English, but American English also comes with accents. So sometimes ladies do try to speak like the Americans. When they twang, we can give them a round of a clap for that activity. They try to twang so much. When we have this information, we are ready now to begin to do the installation. So Windows installation procedure. 1. The installation of Windows is similar to both of Solaris or Linux. One has to insert the CD-ROM or booting system, such as the flash disks. Here is preferable to begin with already partitioned hard drive. So you are installing it in a partitioned area, such as the local disk C. Then on rebooting, we might be asked whether we wish to install the Windows or you need to repair the Windows. That's what always comes in. Then you will have to pick the GNU or the rescue disk using the graphical network user interface that will appear. You need to click next and be able to choose the formatting, especially when you are using the roofers. Then you have to format your disk. Formatting of the disk uses different types of formatting. We have the NTFS formatting. We have for example, let us just check about this formatting issue here. Assume that I want to format this USB this flash disk. Now if you click about formatting, it will ask you which formatting style do you want to use to format this. Do you want to use file systems? Now this is now what asks you about the file systems. File systems are either NTFS. So if you format your disk using the NTFS, it will allow bootable systems to be installed inside them. We also have what are called FAT32. This is a default formatting style, and this one is works best with the Windows 32-bit systems. If you use the extra fat, if you use extra fat formatting, it means that you don't need your computer, your flash disk tomorrow to be used as a bootable setup, because it will not pick. If you format it using that, it will not pick. If you format your flash disk using the extra fat file system type, it will not be able to accept the bootable system to be used on it next time. So you need to be very keen with the type of formatting that you are using. Other thing is that once you have formatted the system, you can also restore the device default using any type that you want to format. So that is about the formatting aspect of that area. So you choose NTFS. Windows reboots several times during the installation process. That is just the entire thing that happens during the installation process. Then sometimes they give you the reminders to proceed to the graphical user interfaces, where you do your setup, the type of lights that you want. You can attach any colors that you want and pick all of them and make the selections. Then sometimes now when you proceed to the network areas, it asks you maybe to enable or disable the DH, dynamic host configuration protocols, to configure the host with an IP addresses dynamically, or whether a static IP addresses, which you will have to set yourself in order to complete the connections. So after various other questions that you'll be asked, you'll need now to reboot your computer and then log in as the administrator and that makes the end of the installation process. So storage management, when you're talking about storage management, we are talking about disk partitioning and fragmentation. So disks can be divided up to into partitions. Why do you partition the disk? It sometimes is to separate the key areas that you want to use. You can also do better organizing of your files and data when you have partitioned your disk well. So partition physically divide the disk surfaces into separate areas which do not overlap. So that is partitioning processes. Now, the main difference between two partitioning on one disk and two separate disks is that partition can only be accessed one at a time, whereas when you multiply divide or partition your disk, multiple disks can be accessed in parallel ways. Now disks are partitioned so that files with separate purposes cannot be allowed to spill over into one another's space. So when you separate them, you can easily be able to organize your data. You know that this one is maybe the entertainment disk, where you put your videos, your music and so on, so that the other disk is maybe for local disk and operating system. You don't have to overload it in order to increase the speed of your computer and other work. The other section can be of you can maybe partition another area maybe for office work, so where you save your documents and so on. So partitioning of a disk allows us to reserve a fixed amount of space for a particular purpose, safe if the knowledge that nothing else will encroach on that space. For example, it makes sense to place the operating system on a separate partition and the user data on another partition, just as I have explained. If these two independent areas are shared common spaces, the activities of the users could quickly choke the operating system by using all its workspaces. Then we have that partitioning of the system have mind the issues described in the previous sections, such as size of the partition. You need also to be able to know about sizes, be able to partition the disk in terms of the sizes. So practically, what are the practical things that I want you to do is, first of all, sizing the partition appropriately for the jobs they will perform. Number two, bear in mind the risk, what is called the SAN-spec or compiled code. When you are dealing with an area of Linux, you have to be talking about the risk partitioning. Then consider how to back up the partitions once you have finished with the maybe partitioning of the disk. But remember, before you partition it, you need also to back up data, so that when you are partitioning it, after partitioning a space, you need to format it. Once it is formatted, then you'll find that you need to now add the content together. Now if you format the disk and you had not backed up the data that was there, you remember that that is a loss in the data that you have, and you might not be able to restore it back if you don't have better forensic knowledge. Because when you talk about forensic data, then you are talking about how to take care of data within the systems that we have. So consider how to back up the partition will be made. So it might save many complications if the disk partitions are small enough to be backed up. Also, choosing the partition optimally requires both experience and forethought. So thumb rules for sizing the partition change constantly in response to changing the RAM requirements and the operating system sizes that you have. So remember, you need to be able to come up with the measures, and that sizing of the disk requires you to have knowledge that how many MBs make 1 GB. So you'll find that when you are partitioning, you need to know that calculation, so that in simple terms, you might use 1000 MBs make 1 GB. So if you have 20 GB, maybe if you have 250 GB and you need the first partition to have 70 GB, then it means that you have to enter the value 70,000 MBs in the partitioning area, as you will see when we shall be doing that practical in class next week. So other things about the limitations that we face during partitioning is, one, this partitioning is performed with a special program. So sometimes you need much content and much knowledge to be able to do the partitioning. Number 2, on PC hardware, this is called F disk or CF disk. Sometimes we call them configuration disk partitioning activities. On Solaris, sometimes Solaris is another version for Linux, so we call it confusingly format. So partitioning of a disk, we first edit the partition tables, then we have to write the changes to the disk itself, and that is called labeling of the disk. Both of these tasks performed from the partition programs, and it's important for you to be able to make use of, to make sure that manually that you partition them and ensure that there is no overlap between the partitions, because in case of the overlap, you lose data and data will get destroyed. The partitioning programs do not normally help us here. What helps us here is the knowledge that we now have about forensic and how to take care of data. And also, if you have backed up the data, then that is also one of the solutions that get provided to you. Reasons why we should not overlap the partition. This is that if partitions overlap, data will get destroyed, and the system will sooner or later get into deep troubles. So as it assumes that the overlapping area can be used legitimately for two separate purposes. Partitions are labeled with logical devices names in Unix. Sometimes we have in Unix some terms that we use to partition it. First of all, within the ETS section, you have to identify the standard or 1-bit value that you need to partition the area. Then you will have to give the def and the disk number. Then this one is always the serial number of the disk that you are partitioning. That is in Linux. So sometimes you might not be asked about that, and also you just know that how do you achieve the directories when it comes to Linux, of which we have looked at the directories. You don't have the problem with that. You just need to know what are the main reasons why, or what happens when partitions overlap. That is a type of an examination question that you can get that explain why explain what happens when partition overlaps. So you just know that data will get destroyed and the system will sooner or later get into deep troubles. We talk about diagram, about the introduction of the meta devices and logical volumes when you are talking about the partitioning in now Linux, which we are not going to take care of it or look at it so much now. Let us look at what is called cleanup and formatting. This formatting is a way of organizing and finding a way around the surface of a disk. You'll be asked about define the following terms: formatting, disk formatting, and disk partitioning. So we've looked at partitioning being a way of dividing the disk into different sections and organizing them well. Now, what is formatting? Is a way of organizing and finding a way around the surface of the disk. It is little bit like painting a parking space in a car park. Like once you have identified a certain position, then people will be coming and park there where we have some areas allocated to them. That is now formatting. Then if we paint a fixed spaces, or maybe the number of areas, like maybe if you go to areas like Gara, even just inside there where you will always find parking areas there having some painted. So painting or showing people how they are going to park specific areas is what is called formatting. So is just a way of organizing and finding a way around the surface of the disk, so that you know this is local disk C, this is local disk D, this is local disk F, local disk E, and so on. On disk surface, it makes sense to divide up the available space into sectors or blocks, and sometimes we use other terms in Linux, such as what are called the Scsi disk surfaces. With the analogy above, a little like making a car park or anything else, It's just all about explaining how distinct you can be explaining about the disk formatting. So it also involves a new set of labels. You can label areas, you can label the disk to local disk C, D, it has letters attached to them and so on, the way you define yourself. Now, managing file systems. How do we manage file systems? Making file systems is also involves setting up an infrastructure for creating and naming files and directories. A file system is not just labeling the scheme. It also provides functionalities. If a file system becomes damaged, it's always possible to lose data. And that is what you must be able to know about that also. Usually file systems checking programs called disk doctors, e.g. the under Unix program, we use what is called the FSCK, what is called the file system checker in full. Can also be used to repair the operating system's map of the disk. And you will get the question asking, what is FSCK in full? It simply stands for file system check. We have the system creation programs for different operating systems that go various names. For instance, if we have the new file systems with the partition M, and then we assign it a value 0 to be the initial partitioned area of the disk, then when you are using the term the new FS is command is friendly front end to the MKF program. MKF means make file system program. The option -M0 is used here to tell us the file system creation program to reserve 0 bits of the special space on the partition when you're using Linux commands. Then the default behavior is to reserve 10% of the total partition size. But now if you want now to assign only 0, then you have to use the extension -M then 0 to give that 0 space bytes attached to it. Then it's also an old mechanism for preventing file system from becoming too full. Nowadays we can do, or you can use any other code that you want, or you can use even other applications to do the partitioning of your hard disks, which does not make it harder for you to perform different work. Graphical user interfaces, or the graphical network user interfaces for Linux systems, have what is called the MKFS command, such as if you run the MKFS/dev/HDA1 in the terminal area, then the file systems are registered in the files area called FS tab. So MKFS stands for make file systems. So that is what it will be just running and ensuring that it has been achieved within the systems under the CLI command line interfaces. Other Unix variant registers disks in the equivalent file systems, such as the HP UX and other file systems. All these other areas, other things might not be such that much important, but we have this command said format fs ntfs within the VMware space. This will create an NTFS file system on the drive F, because this is F that you have designed here. The F is now the local disk that you need. So in case that you type the entire of this command in the terminal area, what it will do, it will create the NTFS file system on the drive and then give it a volume label spare. So this is a volume label name. That's why V spare is volume label, then followed by the name. So the name will be spare. If it is local disk F, then it will be V : then local disk. Then here you give F. If it is local disk D, then it will be local, then here is D, capital D. That means that you are formatting the disk and assigning it a label and then giving it the name. So that is the command that you can use to format the file systems within the Linux area. So in the older days, it was so insecure for you to format the disk using the FAT, and that's why you are seeing even in the Windows we have what is called the extra exFAT. Can also be chosen. However, this is not recommended, because once you format using that, then the disk or the drive that you have formatted will no longer accept what is called the bootable EFI file for any system. So graphical user interface can also be used to partition and format the inactive disks, which we shall see in the next practical. Sharing and securing network printers. So in the network printers, we only have two main aspects that we use in setting up the printers. We use either the BSD like, or we use what is called this other one is called what is the name here, the CUPS, or what is called the LPR and G. So this is the command Unix printing system as emerged in the last few years, which is now commonly used to configure between your printer and the system. So sometimes you can call this kind of commands within the terminal, and you'll be able to have everything being carried out correctly. So nothing else is that very important here. You just need to know about the LPD config files, which is slightly mysterious but has the number of useful options within the systems. So there's nothing very important there that you need first of all to take care of so much in your thinking. Environmental variable printers. You can use the BSD printing command and some application programs to read the environment of the variable printers that you have connected within your system in order to print out data or send the data that you have. The SystV print command LP does not mostly work when you are using the BSD printing style. So we have two types of printing file command extensions. One is the BSD printing queue. How do you perform the work in the printing queue using the BSD format? So you will use the command called LPR space then _p printer file to send files to the named print queue. Sometimes you'll be asked, what is the function of LPR space -p? It's just to send the file to the named printing queue, to send the task to be printed. Just the way you always click print, then it gets into the queue for printing. LPQ shows the printer queue for the default printer and also the printer specified in the environment variable printer. Then LPRM is also a queue ID, which stands for removable jobs from the printing queue. So if you want to remove the jobs that are existing, maybe you are printing something and then you want to cancel it, then you can use the LPRM command within the terminal and it will remove all the printing queue values that are there. Then you can use the LPQ .lpd to start the printing services within the system. We have the SystV print queue. When you are using the SystV print queue format to print other data, you have just to use the LP-D printer in order to send the named printing services to your printer to be printed out. You can also write within the terminal the LP start then -0 to show all the printer queue or services that you are printing, or list all the printing jobs that are in the printing queue. You can use also the LP start -a to tell lies about when the printer services was started. So it can tell you some default information that are not correct about the printing, so that you can also avoid some things to be for you being tracked, that You are the one who printed maybe some various very important documents within the system, because it keeps on the register. Then we have what is called the LP sched, which starts for printing services, and the LP shut, which stops the printing services. So if you run the LP shut within the terminal, it will be stopping the printing process that was carried out. Or you go to the printer, then you click stop printing services. But if you want to use the command prompt of the terminal in Linux to stop the printing, you use LP shut. Then we use LP shed in order to start the printing services. Cancelling the queue ID, you use cancel in order to remove the job from the printing queue areas, and that makes the end of the entire syllabus for system administration. So I think the other thing that I'll come to do next week is just to teach you how to format the disk areas, and be able also to do what is called partitioning of the areas. Then be able to check where you can make some settings on the proxy settings, check where DHCP is, and the static dynamic connections, how you can set your own VPN connections and so on. And that will be making the end of the lectures and also the end of system administration. So I'll send for you these notes so that you keep on also following them as you prepare for your end semester examinations. So I'll wish to end my lecture here, and then